good evening, welcome, or good afternoon, good morning, whatever it might be, wherever you are. That's the joy of being live on something like YouTube. It is international. So, hello to wherever you are at whatever time you. Oh my goodness! Hold on. There we go. There we go. Now, I had YouTube on in the background. So that's no good. Anyway, as the title says, we're going to turn something round and relatively flat. There's my round. And as you can see, it's relatively flat. Um, Saucer, plate, platter, bowl. We're going to talk about it a little more toward the end. Ruby's coming up with some uh, definitions there. And speaking of Ruby, let's bring her in and just so everybody can say hello. Hi, Ruby.
Well,
All right. Mark and Wayne have not been able to join us today. Mark's, I'm not sure what Mark's doing, but he's busy doing something. He'll probably, excuse me, show up in the chat. Don't know about Wayne. I haven't heard from him since when I first put the link up. So anyway, everything's good, and I'm going to put Ruby back in the background for now. You'll still be able to hear. She'll tell me, make any comments or share with me any comments or questions that you guys have. She's also going to read off the list here in just a moment. So let me put things away here. And I've got in my chuck a wormwood screw. This is a piece of lightly figured maple. This was on a sale rack at the wood store, and so that's what I'm going to use. This was the nicest piece of the bunch. I've already drilled it and had it on my worm screw for just for sizing. Make sure everything's good to go. Ruby, if you want to go ahead and read off the participants list, then I'll get started here.
okay, I'll do my best.
Absolutely.
Uh, First in was Old Man River. Um, well, actually, you were first. Todd, Lucy Bundy Rowe, Door 60, Gerard, Alex, um, the wood butcher, Paul Houghton, Johnny Foster, um, Tim Ponder. That's a new name for me. Benjamin, hi Ben. Todd at Glen Cove, James Crawford, Anthony Green, Susie the Swiss woodturner, Chris Walters, um, Rob at Copper Owl wood turning, Fred Gilliver, Mike Evans. I don't know, remember if I said Door 60.
Don't think so.
Douglas Mungham. Hope you're feeling well, Douglas. Let's see. Mark's in as an audience.
All right. He
Roger
said he would
Kent.
do that.
Still going through the list. There's a lot of people saying hello. And Radio Face Woodworks. If I missed anyone, my sincere apologies. But that's about all I could get from my list.
Sounds good. Welcome, everybody. It's good to have every one of you.
Yep, Barry Chitty just joined us.
Hey, Barry. Several folks there. You mentioned Tim Ponder. Tim's not been in a lot of the lives, but Tim, it's good to have you. I know we've spoken on Facebook a time or two. Let's see. My memory is failing me. You may be in on worldwide wood turning as well. Remind me if that's right or wrong. If you would in the chat, that'd be great. Told you a minute ago I'm starting off on a wormwood screw, and on the back I've started a tenon here, just a very shallow tenon. Not going to be a whole lot. This is where I'm at right here is a foot for this. The rest of this is going to be a bit shallower than the foot. I showed you a while ago. This piece was only, well, let's see, what is it now?
Yeah.
It's not very thick.
Malcolm Douglas has joined us as well.
Hey, Malcolm, this whole piece is like 1 inch, 1 and a 16th, something in that nature.
Boy, you're cutting it fine, aren't you?
Oh yeah, yeah. Started with a thin piece of wood, and because well, I have this tendency, if it's 4 inches thick, it's going to be 4 inches or close to 4 inches when I get done. Um, so if I want a plate or a platter, something of that nature, I need to start with something relatively thin to begin with. It's that old thing of wanting to keep as much of the wood as I can. Um, you probably run into that, Ruby, with your students. They don't like to cut a whole lot of wood off of the length.
Well, that's why some of them end up with dog dishes as opposed to bowls.
Exactly,
You know, the
exactly.
bottoms have square corners.
Yeah, the I don't remember if it was I think it was the second. No, it wasn't. It was the first bowl class that I went to. Um, that's a whole funny story, but anyway, um, the instructor had made all the blanks the day before. He'd cut them all out there at his house and brought them into the classroom, and almost everybody ended up with a dog bowl that day. There's very few of us that did not, and he made an example of the few of us that did not have a
Mm.
dog bowl.
Well, that's hopefully how you learn.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was the whole thing, was to help those who were making dog bowls, but to help us remember, those of us who were not making dog bowls, help us remember that we were getting what we were after.
Steve Ash Lerner has joined us.
Hey, Steve.
And Pete has made a comment. He says, Doug, over here we have woodworm screws. You are saying woodworm screw. Is that an Americanism or a Dougism?
I'm only using one, so it's a screw.
I would tend to agree.
Yeah, I'm not using two of them or three of them.
Hi, Pete.
And by the way, good morning, Pete.
Oh, for Pete, no, this is evening.
Yeah, but he always says good morning when he comes
Oh,
into a
okay.
chat. So I just repeated what he tends to say. In fact, he when he signed in earlier, he said good morning. I'm just trying to look at the tenon at the end, the depth of the tenon, and make sure I'm deep enough. I think I am. It's very shallow, but I think it's deep enough.
Good.
I'm going to give this a quick sand up. Turn my speed down. That's 545 there. I'm going to do it by hand. I can't get into this section with that inertia sander. I definitely want to hit it. This foot is tapered in. It doesn't go all the way down. There is still a ledge there, but not much of one. See, one thing I got to fix on this outer edge of the foot. It's not as clean as it needs to be. Turn my speed back up. This is just a small detail gouge. Give that just a little bit of an undercut while I'm there. That was all it needed, that little bitty bit. Slow my speed back down. That looks good. And then from the foot out, it's just a little bit of an ogee. That may change a little bit as we go along. There's a chunk out of the edge of this piece, and I'm hoping it's going to turn out, but it's more in the edge right there. You can just about see it if I switch cameras.
Pete made the comment that for some reason beginners often cut dog bowls, then struggle to hollow it, as that
Yeah,
is much harder than hollowing a nice curve.
absolutely it is.
And Ben has said, I hope this bowl is going to turn out better than the spaghetti bolognese that he just had. I'm so sure it will. And Douglas Mungham was asking, what is the smallest spigot that you work with?
Depth wise, oh goodness, 3/32 of an inch, thereabouts. As long as the ends of the jaws will actually grab it,
Right.
I'm good with that. Um,
And you don't take real aggressive hard cuts either.
no, no. This maple, you may have already been able to tell, it is dry as a bone, but it's cutting extremely nicely. I'm really happy with it.
Good. Wyvie Woodshed has joined us,
Hey, Wivey,
and
it
Dan
really is. Go
Aardvark
ahead.
says,
Okay, Mike. I really appreciate every one of you coming in, joining us on the lives, uh, as well as watching the videos as they come up.
Steve said, Ash said his first attempt at a bowl after watching a Mike Walt video on YouTube turned into a funnel.
You were copying Mike Walt? Is that what you're saying? All right. I just wanted to I moved my vacuum a little bit further away because I want to turn it on while I'm doing the sanding.
Now, Rex has asked, when you are sanding, what speeds are you using? And are you using different speeds for the higher grits?
I'm sanding right now at 650. Um, I started with 60 grit just to make sure I had no tool marks left. As I go up, the speed will stay exactly the same. I'm not going to change it. Um, Now, when I'm using my drill, doing the power sanding, um, I have different hardnesses of underpad. The rougher grits have a stiffer underpad, and the higher grits, 240, 320, they have a very soft underpad. Um,
Okay.
just a little more efficient that way.
Okay.
I,
Andy, the Valley Woodturner, has joined us.
Hi, Andy. Yeah, we didn't quite tell you what. I'm going to make another pass, get into that just a little further. Um, there's going to be some left no matter what I do, I think,
Yeah.
unless I reduce the size, the diameter of it,
which is not the worst thing in the world, but
Gerard, the French turner, is saying good night because he's falling asleep, but he'll watch the rest later.
all right,
So
Gerard.
bonsoir, Gerard.
I think it was Todd I saw was asking him earlier how his new relaxed schedule's going. He said after tomorrow it'll be great. So I'm assuming he has to work tomorrow. That's interesting. That inclusion is popping up below where it was before.
Well, it probably grew at an angle inward,
Yeah, I think you're right.
probably caused by a branch that was trying to come out.
Yes, I think you're exactly right. Good speculation. It's probably where I'm going to stop. What do we got? Yeah, there's a bit of a void in there. This looked like on the top, is bark or something, but that's a void down inside the wood, and it's not on the other side at all. So,
It happened.
hmm, yeah, it does. It's wood. um, tell you what, I wasn't going to hit this rim just yet, but I think I will now, and then I can have a little better judgment on this.
So it might become even shallower than it had started out.
It may, at least not as large in diameter.
I had one piece that was started out to be a large, deep bowl, and as I got into it, I found the whole middle section was hollow.
Yeah,
It ended up
there.
more of a cake stand.
Yeah, there you can see that looked like it was just the bottom side of the bark that was on the edge, but right there, that's more of a void down in the wood. So what I think I'll do, now that I've got it round and I've dug into it a little further, I think what I'm going to do is fill that with a little coffee and CA real quick. Won't take but a second, I hope. Part of why I chose this particular project instead of doing Steve's hashtag week, um, in Worldwide Woodturners for September, we're doing uh, plates, platters, saucers. It's all up to our own definitions of what we're doing. And so this is kind of practice for that. I'm going to do one not tomorrow night, but a week from tomorrow uh, during the as our demo. So Ruby, if you come along, you'll get a repeat.
Well, that's all right. Pete just said that I have some big inclusions and some timber I am prepping. Made him consider using resin, but thankfully he recovered.
Yeah, there you go. There's one way to keep from falling into resin, Pete. Don't buy it to begin with. I have bought UV resin and I've used it a few times, and I kind of like it. It's almost instant,
Well,
not
I'm trying to
100%.
figure out what I can do with some resin and make up some pieces for a demo I have to do in October.
Yeah,
Well, the Easy Wood tools work really well on very dense hardwoods or resin woods, and right now I don't have either with me.
right. No, come on. There we go.
Todd is warning Pete not to go to the dark side.
There's no escape once you get in there. No escape. I
Now
never did.
you used a CA glue there, right?
Yes, ma'am.
When I do
Um,
that, what I typically do is I use a two-part epoxy, and then mix the whatever material I'm mixing in, and then give it 5 minutes to set and
Right.
continue from there.
I have done that. I've also done um, wood glue, made a paste
Right.
with wood glue.
That works too.
Um,
That's a really good technique on fine cracks because if you put the wood glue in and then sand them, the dust goes in with the glue and will fill in many of the cracks.
yes, yes, yes. Kent, turn a wood bowl. He teaches that quite often, and it is a good technique, very good technique. Put the glue in there and just sand. Taking just as fine a cut as I possibly can, so there's not much sanding there. Do want to round that edge off. There we go. We'll take a look at it real quick, but I think we're ready to sand that edge back off again. I got to sand that where I let some glue run over. That void looks pretty good. Looks more like a bark inclusion now. Of course, we do have an inclusion there right on the edge. Okay, we're good. We're good. This won't take long to sand because it's a small area. Turn the dust collection back on.
Approximately, what is the diameter of this piece?
Good question. I'll measure it here for you just half a second.
Offhand, I'd say it looks like it's around 9-10 inches.
It might be 9. I measured it yesterday and I've forgotten what it is. It's just a hair over 9, 9 1/4 maybe, thereabouts.
Okay.
That's why it was burning my fingers. I still had it up at 1600 RPMs. Slow that back down to 600. That'll sound
Yeah,
a whole lot better.
Pete says that CA is not recommended glue for this application, but it gets shown on lives more because it sets so fast.
Right.
In the real world, it's better to use alternatives, so like the wood glue or a resin or an
Yep. I
epoxy or
I
something.
agree 100%. No question about it.
Ward
Yeah.
Wilson from the west coast of Arizona has joined us. Hi,
Hey,
Ward.
hey, Ward.
Must be a little warm out your way, Ward. Being as how we got up into the high 90s today. I think we have 2 more days of hot weather and then it's going to go back to a normal temperature.
Yeah, we've been very hot here, mid to upper 90s, and I think it's well, it's not showing it right this minute. We've got wind and rain coming in, and it's a few degrees cooler today. It might be right at 90.
Yeah, the rain's going to hit us starting tomorrow and Thursday.
Yeah.
Randy Smith has joined us, and he says it's about
Hey,
97 in Pennsylvania.
hey, Randy. 97 in Pennsylvania. My word.
Yeah, Ward is getting some cooler weather from the rain from the hurricane.
Okay.
Yeah, it usually takes about 4 days for the hurricane off bits to get up this way.
That's probably where our rain that's coming in is coming from. Is the hurricane.
Yeah, Lucy said it was 32 Celsius there.
Wow, that's pretty warm, isn't it?
Yep.
I did see a thing yesterday. Guy was he's he really likes tools. It's what he usually talks about. But every once in a while, he'll get off on other things and talking about future. Uh, he's a little bit of a futurist. He does a good job with it usually. But he was talking about the U.S. going to metric, and you know, I'm kind of like him. I don't care if we do. If we do, I hope we go totally metric. None of this partial stuff.
Well, we went metric mainly because you were going that way, and then you didn't go. And I myself, I prefer Fahrenheit. Now, Clint Wood Dancers said that they only had 3 days during the whole last month where the temperature dropped below 100.
Oh mercy! Uh, Hard to take that off when you got it on a worm screw.
And Radio Face Woodwork said Ward is frying eggs on the hood of his car.
Yes.
Actually, we tried that once and it works quite well. Just make
Oh
sure
yeah.
you clean it first.
Well, if you want to eat it, yeah. Okay, take that out of the chuck. And here's for hoping that we are
This is where you have to have good knowledge of how your chuck actually grips.
exactly.
Like, is it a dovetail? Is it a bird's beak? You know.
Yeah. Let me pull this back off and just show this for just a second. I got to switch cameras. In close. Here we go. This is a Nova chuck, Nova jaws. These are heavy bowl jaws. They're about an inch deep instead of the normal, and they're not the typical 50 millimeter. They're something slightly larger, 55 or 60, but they have serrations all the way in. But right at the top, right at the edge, they have that typical Nova bird's beak. And so my tenon, being as shallow as it is, my whole idea was that it would barely fit in, or just fit into those jaws, and that bird's beak would grab it, and it is grabbing very very nicely. I've got there's that's tight, and I've got right at an eighth of an inch between jaws, so it should be about as solid as we can get.
Good.
So all that being said, I'm going to bring my tailstock up, or tailstock, my tool rest up. Just put it close, give it a spin,
No, you
and
could bring
everything
the
looks
tailstock up too if you want to start.
good. Not gonna.
Okay.
um,
Hey, you're the
all I'm
boss. You're the boss today. You do what you want.
There you go. Sometimes, if it was a bowl, if it was something bigger, I would just to get started. Even though that was not emphasized when I first started learning. In fact, I was always told with bowls, the quicker you can get rid of the tailstock, the better. That that philosophy has changed a bit. So now I try to do that a little more often with bowls, particularly. This is so shallow, it's not going to be but just a moment. I'd have to get rid of it anyway. All I'm going to do is I'm going to face this off, and you can see this pencil line out here. That's going to be where my dish starts, and I'm not going to go deep. I'm only going to go well. I'm going to go deep enough, about half an inch maybe, to get rid of that drill hole. Um,
Okay.
but I'm not going to stay at half inch all the way out to this line. I'm going to shallow up as we come along. Bring my speed back up.
Now, Pete was saying that he and Terry were talking after Terry's live on Sunday that there is a good reason to run a day's training on just making different chuck connections on different size orientation of timbers.
Absolutely. I want to come in here and stop just shy of my line. I'm actually going to taper this down just a little bit from the edge down to that point.
Now, Benjamin has replied to Pete that that would be a boring day. And Pete replied to Ben, no, drilling holes is day 2.
You're exactly right, Pete. Letting the bevel kind of be my guide for my eye so I can see exactly what I'm doing. And just as I get to that spot, I'm turning it over. So I
Now, a
want to
lot of
leave just a
people
little bit.
right at that point would put a bead.
That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm leaving I'm leaving this edge. I'm going to go just inside the line and start scooping out and let that be a bead right there just to kind of separate. There's
See
there
that?
might
Great minds think alike.
yeah. Um, there might be a 16th of an inch difference between this height and the height of what's going to end up being my bead. It's not very big. It's just enough to give some definition to the different sections of the bowl.
For making a small bead like that, my favorite tool is about an 1/8 inch badan.
Oh yeah, that'd be a great tool. That reminds me, I did a video. Um, I don't even remember which video it was now, but I pulled out during the video. I pulled out my 1/2 inch skew. Um, there it is. That tool,
Yep, I have one just like it.
and was using it. Whatever it was I was using it on, it was working beautifully for that. And one of the commenters, he said, "That's some great Badan work." And I said, "Well, thank you, except for one issue. It's
It's
not a
not a
Badan.
badan.
It's a skew."
Well,
Um,
Jean-Francois Escalin was the fellow who first introduced me to the banana and got me learning how to use it. And it's an extremely useful tool.
sure.
You can make cuts like a beading parting tool. You can use it like a skew. Yeah, Mark has returned again. Welcome
Hey,
back,
Mark.
Mark. You
Okay,
missed all the exciting conversations.
this wood is so hot, or excuse me, the wood is dry and hard, and it's causing my gouge to get hot. And I know it's sharp. I just sharpened it just before we started. I'm just checking it's well inside the thick part on the back side, so I'm okay as far as the depth goes. Just kind of working my way down to the depth. Almost where I want to be.
Now, Douglas Mungham just asked if turning a platter and you start with a thin blank, is a glue block good enough even on a large diameter blank?
Douglas, I am, maybe Ruby can have a better answer than me. I'm not real experienced with glue blocks. I've used them. Um, I've seen some folks who use them, and they do some phenomenal things with glue blocks. I think of Jim Sprague. He turned some huge bowl blanks with nothing but a glue block. Um,
Yeah, if I do that, I don't use like a hot glue. I use a wood glue and I give it a day at least to dry.
Right?
And if you want, you can even pre-turn the glue block to make your tenon on it. And I apologize to everybody listening if you hear a dog barking in the background. That's Maggie telling me that another dog dared to walk down our sidewalk.
Uh-oh.
And
I
Jennifer has joined us.
hope y'all can see the ripple in that piece of maple. That's why I bought this particular piece.
Yeah,
A
that's
very pretty piece.
very pretty.
Come back with my bowl gouge again. I want to round this little bead over.
I was almost late for this live today because Maggie went to get her hair groomed and her groomer was late in getting it done.
Let's see. I want to come back with my detail gouge here.
Shane Hurst has joined us. Hi, Shane.
Hey, Shane. Little undercut to that bead. All that does, it gives another shadow line so that the eye has something to look at.
That looks good.
All right. We're down to sanding. Slow the speed down. All right. I don't have Wayne's drilly, but I have Donna. So I turn that on. Ruby, if I get too loud, just let me know and I can mute my microphone real quick.
Well, I'll have to wait until the audience says you're too loud.
Okay.
It's quieter than when I use it at home.
Well, I understand that.
Well, Alex says that a nice bowl of Bakewell tart and custard has just been handed to him. I wish I was with you.
You know, one issue, I don't know about any of the rest of you, but well, they are there. Um, I'm seeing I'm seeing little lines right through here, and that is mostly from me and my turning. I tend to get the heel of the bevel on there a little too much, and
That's that's what I
that
was going to say. It probably is the heel. That's why most people put a secondary bevel or go to a different angle on their bowl gouge to try and
right,
avoid that.
right.
Basically, the lines are bruises that you've put into the wood.
Mm-hmm. And unless you get rid of them, either on your final pass or with your first grit of sandpaper, they won't go away with the finer grits. And so I'll spend a little extra time here. Most people would say the finish that I had was close to 150, 180 grit kind of finish to start sanding with, but I'm starting with 60 grit primarily for that, so I don't have to spend so much time. I got a deep one right there. It's not wanting to go away.
I remember one time when I was first beginning, I probably spent 2 hours trying to sand a mark out of a bowl I was making. And then it finally dawned on me I was never going to sand it out because it was a mark in the wood itself.
Yeah. That's
That's
why I
when
wanted to. I
that's when
wanted
you
to
feel
stop a
like
while
a
ago.
dummy.
Yeah, I wanted to stop a while ago and look at that to make sure. It could have been grain. Could have been a lot of things, but it turned out it was that tool mark.
Yeah, Pete just said that a shallow dish is the same problem as a really deep bowl. The transition from side to base often needs a steeper angle.
Absolutely, you can find all kind of issues. I'm gonna get some hand sanding on this rim. Can't quite get in there, and I'll further roll this bead a little bit while I'm there. Um, that that gouge I was using is a half-inch Doug Thompson bowl gouge, and I've never taken the heel off of it. I've meant to a couple of times, but then once I get done, I forget that I'm in to do that. So,
Well, when you're done the live, before we go off, I'll remind you. That's something I think I do automatically because I remember being explained to me that the main part of the bevel that does the cutting is the first 16th of an inch.
exactly, exactly. All right, we're looks good spinning. What's it look like right
Looks
on top?
Now I
Right.
look at that, and what I'd like to do is either paint or burn something along that rim.
Uh huh. Uh huh. And that might be something I decide to do off camera. Um,
Douglas has just said that he has a house brick if you need it for sanding.
nah, don't need it. It's not that bad.
And Mark
I don't.
made a point that he and Pete, when they took a class with Glenn Lucas in Ireland last year, they found that a shallow dish is sometimes harder to do well than a deep bowl is.
All right. That flew off because I had everything spinning exactly the wrong direction, and these pads twist on, and I knew better than that. There we go.
Mark just asked if you've considered wet sanding some oil in that might mask any blemish.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
Mark asked if you've considered wet sanding some oil in that might mask any blemish.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
That would depend, I would think, on what finish you put on overall afterwards. Because if you put an oil on, then you're very limited to what you can use for a finish.
It does. But if you let most anything, if you let it sit a little while, um, in fact, we had we had fun a while back. It's been maybe a year ago, talking about if you let even oil let it sit for what was it, Pete? 3 days. You can put anything on it. So anyway, uh, trying to confuse myself. Had that reversed. Now it's going the right direction. Um, Here lately, I don't know if they've changed the formulations or what they've done. I've put lacquer over the top of wax, even. It's pretty amazing. Things that they used to say, oh, you don't do that, it'll never work. Um, Depends on what you're doing and how long you wait, how you pre-treat. I've taken a wax finish even and decided it wasn't what I wanted. Gave it, I mean, a quick wipe with a little bit of denatured alcohol. Not a soaking or a washing, just a quick wipe off. And lacquer stuck to it like it was raw wood. It's hitting that edge just to soften the hair.
Now, Mark made a comment that you could wipe over with denatured alcohol
Uh huh.
to take the oil off and then finish with whatever you want.
Right.
And Pete said that Wayne and Robo uh, have several times used a hardening oil and confirmed that after 3 days you can put other stuff on it.
Yeah. 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 I was. That's what I was thinking, Pete. 3 days. That got to be rather comical during that period. 3 days. I think some were asking the question just so we could say 3 days.
Oh dear. That's looking very nice.
It's. I'm at 150 here, and it's starting to feel very nice. That's one of the things I've learned with maple, and I don't turn a ton of maple. I just don't get it for some reason. There's plenty of it around, but anyway, um, the curlier it is, or the more figure that it is in the maple, the until you get down to 150, 240 grits, um, they tend to. It looks like it's got tear out in it. It's really just the figure, the edges of the figure sticking up, and a
Yeah,
little bit of sanding takes care of it. There went that piece. I see it, so I know where to go find it.
I think that's one of the mesmerizing things about turning when you first get started is watching the dust go into the extractor.
And normally, I mean, I would have mine on right now, but I don't because I can't hear. Um, it's at the just perfect pitch. I can't hear hardly anything else. I hear enough to know stuff is going on and being said, but that's as much as it goes.
Well, when I first started, I was so fascinated with how the shavings would come off the tool, particularly wet shavings,
Oh
that
yeah,
I placed a garbage can on each side of the lathe and I would try to make sure I aimed them right into the can.
yeah, yeah,
So I had less to sweep up afterwards. And that it was a fun challenge to do that. It definitely taught you tool control.
yes, yes. Well, you learn that you can direct those shavings as well. Um,
Definitely.
Mark and Pete, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it John Lucas who shoots his shavings over his shoulder into a dumpster?
Yeah, Glenn Lucas.
Glenn Lucas used to do that. That's right. That's right.
Well, that was a trick that Alan Batty used to do when he did demos back in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And then Stewart, his son, and Mike Mahoney picked up on it. And they would have competitions doing that at the different shows.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's where Glenn picked up on it as well. They used to have competitions for speed, how who could turn the fastest goblet, for example.
Right.
And I remember the one time Alan was going against his son Stuart, and as soon as they said go, Alan went right to it and had the goblet half done before Stuart figured out that his dad had unplugged his lathe.
Nothing like cheating, just a little.
The Papa in 1947 has just joined us, and
Well, hey, Gary.
he says looking good, Doug.
Gary and I have started having some interesting conversations with after videos and whatnot, and he and I both have a well, I think it's more common than just the two of us, but this love of walnut. Um, I have said many times, and I will continue to say, walnut is the king of North American hardwoods. I just think it's beautiful. You can't hardly beat it. Um, the English or European walnut is pretty, but it's not American black walnut. Um, it's just beautiful. I've started saying walnut is the king, cherry is queen, and the crown prince is mimosa. Um,
I think I would put a good hard maple at the top of all that list.
maple is pretty too. It is. It is. There's no question.
Yeah, if you get a sugar maple, it has all kinds of chatoyance and things going on in it. And Pete said that Glenn Lucas had a skip in his workshop and 7 lathes running with an assistant changing the bowls, and he managed to get 99% of the shavings into the skip, saving on
That's
cleanup time.
that's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, just a little air to blow the heavy dust off. Get a paper towel here, or a piece of one anyway.
And a lot of people are agreeing with you about the walnut and that, but Mark says we have you, so you all lose.
Absolutely. Yew is a gorgeous wood. If we had yew here, it would definitely go in that top five kind of category. Um, I don't know that it would ever replace black walnut,
Now,
but yew for the
now, now look at the patterning coming up in that maple, though. I mean,
yeah,
that's as good as anything you'll get.
yeah, you can see the ripples through there. Um, this was it was interesting. They had this stack of like 6 boards there at Woodcraft. When I walked in, my son and I were there for something totally different. I was not looking to buy anything. He wanted a couple of small things, projects he was working on, and I saw these boards sitting on the sale table right on the front, and I looked through them. They were all maple. They all had a natural edge on them, and I thought, let me just take a glance. I looked all through there, and this piece was on the very bottom, and I told the guy, of course, the piece I want's on the bottom. This had the most figure in it, and it's the only one that had this ripple in it that you can see going across the grain now. Got the grain going vertical, the ripples going horizontally. Now it'll pop out here again, even better. Now that I got the dust off of it.
Susie says her favorite wood is laburnum, followed by yew. We
Laburnum's
do that.
beautiful as well.
Yeah, that's not a wood we commonly get over here.
No,
And Lucy, that would be American walnut, not English walnut.
I'm gonna before I turn everything off, I'm gonna go get a platter that I've turned for um, the maker's auction out of black walnut.
Lewis, the Klondike craftsman, has joined us. Hi, Lewis.
Lewis.
I hope Jack's doing well.
Now, if you really want to know, Jack is king.
He is over there.
Jack is king.
And Mark says the Australians have a good shout at the best wood with the red mallee burl.
Oh, mercy.
I
Absolutely. That's
agree.
gorgeous. That's gorgeous. I was just talking about American hardwoods. That's all I was talking about.
Well,
But yes,
unfortunately, we have an international crew here.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's not unfortunate. I don't think. I'm glad of that. Proud of that, in fact. Um, Somebody asked me, I said something one time about needing to get home because I had YouTube to do, and they thought I was just watching videos. And they said something about it. I said, no, I'm not watching videos. I'm doing a live for an international audience. What? Kind of blew their mind. Started listing off all the different countries, and Yappy's not in with us today. He's South Africa. We'll often have Australia represented, New Zealand, England, France, Spain. Oh man.
Rob from Copper Owl said he has a dozen or so 9/4 slabs left in the shed that he cut off the split ends and got about 14 blanks for small bowls and larger platters.
Very nice.
Shane Hurst has joined us.
Hey Shane.
And Lewis says the jack is great and growing fast.
I bet.
And Alex says he's got some decent chunks of yew from a tree being trimmed in a local churchyard.
Mm-hmm.
He's just waiting for the day when it's dry enough. And Ben
That's cool.
says his favorite is oak with inclusions.
Oak is really nice. Some oak can be boring if it doesn't have anything going on. Of course, maple can be boring if it doesn't have anything going on in it.
But then it's just asking to be colored or textured or
yeah, I was gonna say you put a little color on that boring wood, and quite often you come up with something really nice. Case in point, the poplar vase that I turned last week. If you haven't seen the stills of that, go back and I've included them on the end of the video. It came out really nice. I'm just denibbing here before I put a little more sanding sealer on. That's looking good, feeling good.
Randy Smith is having to leave us. He's dropping off. He's going to an early dinner. Steaks
Right,
with
Randy.
their own zip codes.
Oh man, it sounds like a winner.
I hope you enjoy it, Randy.
All right, just getting the second coat on here and we'll let it dry. Then we'll come back and use a little Axe abrasive paste on it. Really start getting it shined up. Go ahead and turn that on so it can help dry. Go ahead and get off a few of my pieces of paper towel here. So I'm
Now,
ready to go on.
Clint asked if I've ever turned sweet gum, one of the prettiest woods they have around on the Gulf Coast. And actually, I have turned some, and I have to agree, it was beautiful to turn.
The spalted sweet gum is gorgeous. Love it. A little bit of Axe abrasive paste is what I'm gonna be using.
And Douglas says he has some olive ash short logs that are 20 inches in diameter. Wish I lived closer, Douglas.
No kidding. Olive ash is really nice. You get the advantage of the hard ash wood, but you also get the beauty of that olive type of grain. I did finish a desert olive bowl yesterday. When I go get that walnut platter, I'll grab that bowl as well. Let you see it. It's a little bit different than normal olive. It's a harder wood. It doesn't have the pretty white kind of creamy wood that has the beautiful grain in it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is still nice. Still really, really nice.
Yeah, Pete commented that there are over 600 different oak species in the world. Some are great and others not so much.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same with many woods. Like for example, most people kind of shy away from pine. But if you get pine that's growing at a very high northern latitude or a very high altitude that's slow growing, it can be as nice to turn as a hard maple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are some very hard, dense pines. We here in my area, we tend to have white pine is about it. Um, Yellow pine, the old growth yellow pine, is what a lot of the great buildings were built with, and that stuff that can be hard. Um, this is a piece. No, that's not it. Um, Somewhere here, I've got a piece out of an old church. When they remodeled, they took some beams out. I've got one small piece left, and it's hard. But when you turn it and sand it, it still smells like pine sap.
Yeah, Lewis made a comment except for the pitch. And yes, you
Yeah.
do get a lot of pitch out of certain woods.
Yep.
That's why I have shower curtains that pull right around my lathe so that when I'm turning green wood and roughing it down, they collect most of the sap.
Moving on over to a new piece of paper towel, raising my speed up to 550. Just working this abrasive paste out now. It's done its work. Um, I know most of you have used abrasive paste in the past, whether it's Axe or Yorkshire Grid or True Grid or any of the other 15 million of them. It's kind of like oak. There's a whole bunch of different flavors, but they all tend to work about the same. Take you from about 240 grit up to 1,000 grit with no dust, no environmental hazards. Um, and really, that's why I started using it. It wasn't. I don't mind if I'm going to sand. I don't mind sanding all the way up to 1,000 grit. In fact, I was doing that before I started using paste. Um, but the paste just keeps you from having all that dust, and it's that fine dust from 320 up that'll get you.
Lewis asked if when I turn wraps in shower curtains, it doesn't give me the urge to sing. And my reply to that is no, because if I did, my machines would all turn off. The only person worse than myself singing was my brother, and he would sing in the shower and it would turn itself off.
Oh my goodness. Must be somebody else walking by. Maggie doesn't like it.
She's very protective.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad. And I don't know that anybody else knows, but Maggie's not even your dog, is she?
No, she lives three doors down, but when they have to go out, she comes to my place, and she doesn't
Yeah,
like going home.
yeah. Rather be with Ruby than with her owners.
Well, that's okay. Tonight and the next few days, I have to look after another neighbor's cats.
Oh.
I have keys to about half the neighborhood so that I can look after their pets when they go away for a few days or
Yeah, yeah. I'm just continuing to change the section of the paper towel here that I'm using, buffing out this abrasive paste, looking for the towel to come back clean. We're getting close. And every time I switch sections of paper towel, I'm switching or raising the speed up a little bit. We're up to 1,050 now. But this one is nowhere near as thin as that one piece that I was done with, it exploded on me. This piece of wood is much more stable, no cracks. Oh yeah, we're doing good.
That makes
Doing
it a
good.
very useful item when you get finished.
Yes. Well, I expect we will use this plate. If I don't put it in the store and sell it, I expect we will use it.
When I was at Mike Mahoney's place, this is going back probably into the early 90s. All of their dishware in their home was all turned plates and platters and bowls.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is a carnauba-based wax, much like, it's not the same, but it's much like the Hampshire sheen wax. Um, the axe folks about a year ago, year and a half ago, decided they were going to experiment with their formula, and they ended up putting twice as much carnauba in the mix that they'd been putting in. I personally think it's a much better wax now. It was not bad before, but I love it now. Um,
Now, will you consider putting a very hard carnauba type wax over top?
yes, yes. Um, just recently, especially Ruby, I've been thinking back to when we used to use various carnauba-based waxes on our cars, and how bright and shiny they would get. You know, go from a dull car to very bright and shiny. I've thought about getting some of those waxes and trying them. I know people use them, and so I may give that a shot. This is working extremely well. Oh,
It is looking really good.
it's a shame there's no character in this wood, isn't it? Chatoyance all the way across, and that's caused by that ripple. Um, it's just it's a lovely piece of wood without being in your face with anything. It's got the two little places here on the edge that just adds character, and then you get that flash that goes across there. Um,
Well, sometimes simple is better.
sure, sure. We're gonna go back up to 1600 where we turned it at, just to buff this. Very light pressure to begin with, particularly. I'm wanting to buff this wax, not really remove it as much as to buff it.
A number of nice comments coming from different people about the chatoyance, and it looks so clean. It's amazing from Alex.
Now, for you folks who are interested, I don't know, everybody's not interested, but those of you who are interested, if you want to see a similar piece being done in a week from tomorrow on worldwidewoodturners.org, um, 7 o'clock Eastern time, 6 o'clock Central time, I'll be doing this again for them, for those folks. But that's free. You're welcome to come. Just go on the website, worldwidewoodturners.org, and there on the front page is a go to meeting button. You click on that, and it'll take you directly into a Zoom meeting where one of the moderators will let you in. There's no cost, no passwords you got to have or anything like that. Just simply click the button. You're all extremely welcome. I know for you folks in Europe, that's awfully late at night or early in the morning, whichever way you want to look at it. But for you folks in the US or Australia, it works out real nice. Australia, it's early in the morning, but we have one guy that's there every single week from Australia, Donald Masterson, and he has a
Uh,
job.
Pete made a good comment to be careful with the car waxes because many have a color restore ingredient that may not suit the wood.
You're exactly right, Pete. Um, there are some that are pure waxes and some that have some strange chemicals in them. That's one nice thing about using something made for woodwork. They're usually more pure wax and oil. Um, the reason they use the oil is to soften the wax until you buff it in. Like right now, it's buffed already. What I'm doing is applying a little more pressure, building up a little bit of heat, and that helps carnauba to actually set, and it gets harder as it cools back down.
That's why I recommend, if you haven't done it so far, take the Hampshire Sheen finishing course online. And
Yes,
it's free, but you'll learn a lot about applying waxes and oils and stuff like that.
yes.
It's it's
Martin
it's just a very, very good source of information.
Martin has done years of research on waxes and finishes, and um, so yeah, take that course. It's free. You go onto the store site. Mark, if you're still in the chat, you could put that website in if you wanted to. It's going to look real quick. Um,
Yeah, I don't have it handy right here.
I was just going to say I've yet to make you a moderator, but you are now. You are now. There you go. You are now a moderator.
Oh dear.
So you can add steps, or you can add websites if you'd like. Oh, Pete can do it. I forgot Pete was made a moderator.
Now Pete just put in for the Hampshire Sheen and the Worldwide Woodturners.
Great. Thank you, Pete.
Yes, thank you. And I agree, Rob. Pete is the best. He's my favorite giant. I only come up to about Pete's belly, I think.
Oh my! I don't remember. Copperal is one of the moderators. I forgot making him a moderator. All right, we're at a place where we can do show and tell. Do do
Yes,
do.
Mark, you're also one of my favorite giants, but you're not quite as tall as Pete is. That
Here we
is
are,
great.
folks. Nice ripple going across the grain. Plenty of flash. That cat's eye just really pops. The back, I've still got to remove the tenon, but I'll do that. I'll take it over to the other lathe, put it on the vacuum chuck, and do that. That's a simple operation to do. So let me set this up here. You guys can continue to look at it for a minute. I'm going to take this. There we go. Take my helmet off.
Now, is this going to take you a couple minutes to get those pieces?
No, they're just in the next room. I'll be right back.
Oh, I was going to say,
What were you going to say?
I was going to show them my pen holder.
Oh. Yes, yes, yes. Let me let you do that.
Well, give them something else to look at.
In fact, I'm going to make you, there you go. You're front and center.
So I've been making these little knights to hold a pen for displaying them. And if you look at it, he's on a shield. Now I tried taking one and I painted it silver, but to be honest with you, I don't like it. The plain wood, I think, looks a lot better. So if you have scraps of 1/4 inch plywood, it just gives you something else to do. And you know what? It'll even hold a pencil.
He's great. Yeah,
Okay, you're back.
I am back. Um,
Good.
Many of you remember the olive bowl that I had I cored it, and as I was doing the cleaning up work on the bowl, I put a hole in the bottom of it. Totally my fault. And actually, it. I didn't put the hole in it. It was while I was coring, and it got too thin in coring. But this is the core, so it came out. It came out pretty nice. I'm pretty pleased with that one. Finished that up yesterday. But then for the maker's auction,
Yeah, that piece is stunning. The grain and everything in it.
the crotch section, the feather in that is just gorgeous, and it's on the back as well. Um, Runs right through there on the back. Can't see it quite as well. There it is. Gotta get the light just right, don't you? But then there again, that's that wax finish. Same thing I just put on this other plate. But that's going to the maker's auction. Steve was very gracious in allowing me to share that one. Um, but this is one. What did it end up with? Nine, just over 9, I think, is what we ended up with, as far as uh, it's just shy of 9.5. So I guess depending on where you are, if you're in Texas, that would be a saucer maybe. I call it a dinner plate. I like them more like 10 inches or so personally, but um, a lot of plates that you buy are 9 inches.
All
So what,
right.
Ruby, I think you had a definition for saucers, plates, and platters, didn't you?
Yeah, when I read the introduction to this live session, I kind of looked things up, being the teacher in me. If it's a bowl, it's a concave, rounded dish. If it's a plate, it's a dish, usually round and almost flat. So that comes pretty close. And if it's a platter, it's a large plate for serving a main dish. So I
Okay.
think as to what it is, I think this qualifies more as a plate as opposed to a platter.
Yeah. Um, but then you can throw a kink in that. A family of two, a roast would fit on this for two people really nicely.
In which case it would become a platter.
Yeah. It's probably more use than it is by size or anything else, isn't it?
Yeah.
And just personal, what you want to call it. Oh, let's get real fancy here. Da-na-na. That's as slow as my lathe will go. That's 50 RPMs.
That's a handy feature to have on it.
Yeah, every once in a while, having 50 as a available speed is a good thing. And I could slow it down. I'd have to change the belt positions, um, which is something I just realized that I need to do. I've been coring at this same um, on the same belt position, and I need to change that so I get more power. Still be a slow speed, or I can get the same speed, but I'll get more power by putting it in a different belt position. And it may say 1,000 RPMs when I'm really only turning 400 or 500. So,
Okay.
but that'll work. And that would make this 50 go slower too. I could probably get it down to 20 if I put it down to the slow belt position.
I could
But
see
anyway,
some painting applications that would be a handy feature for.
absolutely,
Like for
absolutely.
painting, creating a spiral.
Yeah, yeah. Like take a brush and go just swipe across. That'd give you a spiral.
Yes.
You could even go much slower than I did. If kind of like that, you'd still get a spiral. Now, if you just held it there and barely moved, you get a solid. But man, that feels so good. That wax on there is it just feels lovely. always, when I was waxing cars, I'd always like to wait about 15, 20 minutes after I buffed them and then rub the back of my hand across that paint. It feels so good. And then I look for it to rain. I always like to see that rain beating up on the wax. That was always a lot of fun.
Well, next time if you come up over this way, I'll make sure my cars are dirty so you can wash them.
Well, you heard me say when I used to wax. I washed my car here just a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and first time I washed this car. It's a relatively new car to us, and I didn't wax it or anything. I just washed it. Got the gray off of it. It's a white car, but I got the gray off of it, thankfully.
Well,
Anyway,
that tends to happen with age. When you're younger and you get your first new car, you wash it practically every day.
oh mercy, yes. All right, folks are having to bow out, and I understand that. People going to Yandles, people going to Harrogate. I'm not going anywhere right now. I'm staying home for a while. I've been out enough. I take that back. I've got to go Wednesday to Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm not looking forward to that trip. Uh, the subject matter is going to be good, but having to get in Atlanta traffic,
That's
horrible,
not good.
horrible. It's like almost as bad as going to New York City. So anyhow, if there's no other questions, I'm not seeing anything.
No,
All right. Your car's available in black, Lucy. Yes, black gets dirty worse than white does. It's terrible.
it, it shows the dirt.
Yeah, yeah. All right. We're going to check out of here, folks. It's been good to have all of you with us today. It's been a fun time, a good turn. Everything worked out really nicely. So I appreciate you being here to experience a good one. Every once in a while, we have a little mishap, but this was a good one. So good to have you. We'll be back again next week. If something doesn't stop us from it, that's the plan to be back. And probably going to be turning my hashtag week period piece, uh, hashtag Oriental influence. So Mark picked a good one, or Steve picked a good one for this hashtag. There's several folks have already done them. They are beautiful pieces so far. Mine's going to be something similar to what Terry did, unless I change my mind between now and then. More of a Japanese style bowl, a pedestal bowl. That's what I've got in mind. We'll see. It may change between now and then. So, Ruby, if you'd like to say good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, folks.
Safe journeys, folks.
Yes, we'll see you all next week, if